is being conducted electronically due to the ongoing technical upgrades in our boardroom. We kindly ask for your patience as we navigate this format. Should it be necessary to continue in this format for another week, we will provide updates through our usual communication channels, and it will be noted on the agenda cover pages. Please note, this meeting is being live streamed now and recorded. We request directors, please keep your cameras on and your microphones muted unless speaking. If you wish to speak, please use the raise hand function on your screen's action bar. Once acknowledged by the chair, please turn on your microphone. For other participants, please keep your microphone and camera off until invited to speak by the chair. Once acknowledged by the chair, please turn on your microphone and camera. For public input period and question period, we have asked citizens to have registered with Legislative Services by noon yesterday. We have a total of 2 registered for public input period and nobody for question period at this meeting. Citizens will be invited to speak when called upon by the chair. As always, we will be following parliamentary procedure for this meeting, and we appreciate your patience and understanding as we navigate through this meeting format. Chair, we are live streaming and ready to go.
All right, thanks for that. So I'd like to start by recognizing that the CBRD is on the unceded territories, the Kwetson, Malahat, Subaksad, Halal, Penelakut, Semanis, Laxon, Pakwachin, Didadat, and Pacheedaht nations, whose people have walked gently here for thousands of years. So the quorum being present, I'd like to call this committee of the whole meeting to order. Our first item of business is approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda? Moved by Director Duncan. We have a seconder.
It's live, Chase already checked.
I know, but it's like
Seconded by Director Nicholson.
AI assistant, because that's
So
showing.
I think somebody doesn't have mute on right now.
Yeah, I'm just going through.
All right, I'll call the question. All in favor? And opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. We'll now move on to adoption of the minutes. So we have before us the committee of the whole minutes of December 11th, 2024. Would someone like to move that these be adopted? Moved by Director Abbott. Seconded by Director Justice. Call the question. All in favor? And opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. We'll now move on to the committee of the whole minutes from December 12th, 2024. Would someone like to move that these be adopted?
Chair, may I interrupt for a moment, please?
Yeah.
Thank you. We have noted that the minutes need to be amended per item 16. That function 100 reduced contingency GLs to reduce requisition, and that it says 35,000, that is should say 85,000 for the consultant projects to be taken from the operating reserves, and that function 100 general government be approved as amended. So if the minutes could be approved as amended, that'd be greatly appreciated.
All right, can I get a motion to adopt the minutes as amended? Moved by Director Kallio, seconded by Director Mackay. Any discussion? All in favor? And opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. We'll now move on to public input period. So I'm just going to read the preamble here. Public input period is to offer the public an opportunity to comment on an agenda item before the board considers the item. The public input period procedure policy allows for an allotment of 15 minutes, where the speaker is welcome to comment on any items on the agenda up to a maximum of 3 minutes. This excludes items that are or have been the subject of a public hearing. Input from the community is valued and appreciated. We request that input is presented in a friendly and respectful manner. Your cooperation in maintaining a safe, respectful, and orderly environment is greatly appreciated. So I understand we have 2 members of the public who have signed up to provide input at this time. I'll turn to staff.
Yes, we have John Robertson for agenda item UB1 AVICC resolutions, private managed forest lands.
All right, Mr. Robertson, you've got up to 3 minutes. If you'd like to start.
Yeah, good morning, Chair, board members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is John Robertson, and I am here on behalf of the Shawnigan Basin Society and wish to speak in support of the resolution for the AVICC regarding the private managed forest lands review of 2019 and the need to act on concerns outlined in the responses to the review, particularly those submitted by the CBRD. I would like to start by emphasizing the importance of sustaining and restoring ecosystem services provided by mature forests in the upland regions of our watersheds, These natural systems provide quality water resources at rates and times that benefit the communities that rely on them. The short rotation clear-cut silviculture system employed by the owners of private managed forest lands systematically degrades and removes ecosystem attributes necessary for the healthy hydrologic cycle in our watershed. Water quality can be reduced and the timing and delivery of water through the watershed is disrupted. The regulatory controls on private managed forest lands are delivered by the Managed Forest Council, an independent provincial agency with no ties or accountability to the communities most affected by the management practices on these lands. The regulations that guide their work are diminished and ineffective when held against the existing regulations governing forest practices on public lands, particularly with respect to harvest rates. The problems associated with the Private Managed Forest Land Act are well documented in the responses to the 2019 provincial review, as well as in the multitude of resolutions to the AVICC and the UBCM that have come before this one you have today. The solution lies in the establishment of ecosystem-based water management plans that apply across the spectrum of land ownership and set standards and goals for private managed forest lands in alignment with conservation and restoration of a healthy hydrologic cycle. The Shawnigan Basin Society has such a plan for the Shawnigan watershed, and the work of the Coxsila Watershed Working Group is a landmark effort in producing a truly community-generated plan. Regional governments must gain access to regulatory oversight of the private managed forest lands. The BC government recognizes the importance of ecosystem-based decisions and is pursuing solutions on public lands, but disregard the private managed forest lands program and its management deficits. This places an unfair burden on Vancouver Island communities as the private managed forest land remains unrestrained by local interests and concerns for watershed health. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. I'll now turn to staff. I understand there's one more member of the public wanting to provide input.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Bernard H.J. Jurlink, agenda item UB1 AVICC resolution, private managed forest lands.
Mr. Jurling?
Sorry, Chair, I thought I had, oh, he's on mute, so one moment.
Good morning, Chair and Directors. I'm also a member of the Shawnigan Basin Society, but I'm speaking this morning as a private citizen. So I'm in full support of the AVIC resolution number 2. I've always maintained that forests may be private, but excuse me, the watershed is public and the public should have a say in how the forests are managed. I would also urge the CVRD to push for changes in the Private Managed Forest Land Act to better protect the health of the forest and the water therein. And to have also to have better forest practices on Crown lands. I'll point out again that the Canada's forests used to be net carbon sinks, and according to Natural Resources Canada, which is an unbiased agency, I would think, the last time Canada's managed forests sequestered more carbon than they emitted was in 2002. And this is due mainly to wildfires, since naturally regenerated forests have been replaced with monoculture, fire-prone, resin-containing coniferous trees while eliminating deciduous trees and shrubs that are fire-resistant. Such monoculture forests also have a large negative impact on biodiversity, in part by removing food sources that deciduous trees and shrubs provide. So I would also urge the CVRD to urge the province to change all legislation that governs forest harvest to have better protection of the health of our forests and thus of our watersheds. Thank you for your attention.
Great, thank you. So I believe that concludes public input. We can now move on to the next item of the agenda, which is delegations. I'd like to invite Julia Fisher and Jessie McGee-Chalmers from Vancouver Island University to present on the one-year performance report on the Agriculture and Food Program activities for 2024.
Great, thank you, Chair and Directors. I will share a PowerPoint to give a summary of our activities for 2024. Okay. Is it coming up just the presentation, right?
Yeah, we can
Yeah.
see it.
Okay, great. I've run out of screens to see it. So we're glad to be here today to speak about what we've been up to over the last year. My name is Julia Fisher. I'm the lead program coordinator for agriculture and food systems at VIU.
Sorry, Julia,
Jesse
your notes are up there too.
Oh, it's okay. I don't have any notes, but that's not
Okay.
what I want.
Thanks.
See if I can switch.
She's just trying to,
She may want to go to presenter mode.
yeah, maybe presenter mode. Yeah, we got her. As presenter.
No,
No, in the PowerPoint.
PowerPoint.
Sorry about this. Okay, how's that? Do you still have the notes?
We
It's a
still
little
have
bit,
the
that's
notes.
fine.
It's fine to
Can't
just
see
go
the
ahead?
notes. I think it's fine to go ahead, yeah.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. I just wanted to say Jesse's here also. He's our campus administrator. And we're grateful for the support from the CVRD for the 2024 year. So I'll give you an overview of our activities. We've been working on the micro-credentials, the workshops at Providence Farm that we mentioned last year. We've done a lot of engagement work, and I'd like to share what we'll be doing next. So one of the projects that we were working on was to complete the development of some micro-credentials and deliver them to the community. So the first micro-credential that we delivered in 2024 was on soils. We had 26 students and it ran from September to October, and there were a total of 9 classes. We had 2 field days, and they were at the Sandown Center for Regenerative Agriculture and Tatlow Road Farm and the Nanaimo Food Share. And so we have a lot of local experts. So the students were thrilled with these field days, even though it was during an atmospheric river. You can see one of the students wrote to me in an email after the course and said it was fabulous. I cannot share all the ways it will change the way I farm, but I can say that the farm will be better for me having had this opportunity. So it was a really positive pilot of this course. We've completed the review and the edits of the pilot. The next course was on agroecology. So we had 15 students complete this course, and it ran through November to December. We also had the same format. We had 9 classes, 2 of them were field days. And we spent time at David Tadham's farm in Glenora, Lockwood Farms, the estuary in Cowichan Bay, Ken Elliott's Restoration Nursery, and the Eco Village in Shawnigan Lake. So again, there was very positive feedback for the field days where they could bring the online learning and see some real life applications. We also had a guest, Thomas Munson, join us. And I forgot to mention the soils course. The development was funded by the Innovation Grant from CWC. and the agroecology course development was funded by the Ministry of Post-Secondary Education and Future Skills.
Hey, Ms. Fisher, for your presentation, did you want to move through the slides? We're still on the first slide right now.
Oh no, I am so sorry. Thank you for letting me. That's frustrating. Okay. I know I sent this in as well. I'm not sure if someone is able to help with that. I haven't used this WebEx meeting platform. So
Julia, are you using like Google Slides, or what's the software?
it's a PowerPoint presentation.
So
and I've sent it.
I think it's F5.
Try pushing F5, see what happens.
Is that working?
No.
I thought it was. I could be wrong for presenter mode. Let me go with this.
Or
View slideshow.
view slideshow, or there's slideshow at the top.
Yeah, view at the top and slideshow.
Yeah, like I don't think it's to do with your sharing. You're sharing correctly.
Just need to
Just your view. There, haha.
then use the space bar
And then push your space bar to, yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
You're seeing the other slides?
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thanks for letting me know. I'm glad I didn't get through it all before. So here's a photo of the soils course where everyone's in the atmospheric river. And then here we're with Kenna Elliott and Brandy at the Eco Village. And so I'll move on to the third micro-credential that we were working on the development on last year, and that was developed in collaboration with the Canadian Organic Growers and Seed Change. And there was also funding that came from CWC for the development of this course. This is Mary Britton. She runs an heirloom seed company, and she's our instructor and was the primary writer for this course. And it's delivered online completely. And Canadian Organic Growers will also be piloting the course in February. So all of these courses, we were able to secure funding from the BC Future Skills Grant for the majority of the students. So that's really helped to bring awareness to this course and enable students to take the courses. Last year, we ran 7 workshops in the spring at Providence Farm. Here's Kristen Mescali of Satin Flower Nurseries teaching about meadow making. We had a large number of other, we had 7 other courses. So we had a workshop on native pollinators, beekeeping, meadow making, backyard chickens, xeriscaping, irrigation design, and basic maintenance and operation of farm equipment. So that's something that we are working on now, and I'll speak about in a few minutes. We also engaged with a number of community organizations to kind of strengthen our the awareness of our offerings, and also to receive feedback, to have one-on-one conversations, and gain some insight into how we can partner, whether that's field days or attend events. So there's a mix of all of those interactions with this list of community organizations. And then what's next? So right now we have submitted an application for funding to develop a livestock micro-credential, and that's been submitted with the Small Scale Meat Producers Association. So we're waiting. We've sent in an expression of interest at this point, and we're hoping to be invited for an application. And right now I'm working on the spring workshops at Providence Farm and other locations. So the first workshop will be pruning in the end of February. We have a Fire Smart workshop in the works, basic maintenance and operation of farm equipment again, a beekeeping course, and a few other workshops. North Island College, who we've partnered with on a number of programs and offerings, including the micro-credential suite, they have developed a program or a course called Community Food Systems. And so we're going to look into seeing if that's something that we can incorporate into our suite. We have a partnership with North Island College to deliver the craft brewing program, so helping with practicum placements for that program. We plan to continue our involvement with CWC's Agriculture Special Interest Group. And we hope to we plan to attend a number of agriculture events and focus groups in this year, and continue to seek funding to support students to take these courses. And we'll look again to see if we can secure funding for the BC Future Skills Grant when that becomes available. So that's a summary of the activities from last year, and I welcome any questions. And I thank you for being patient and helping me.
Thanks, Ms. Fisher, for the presentation. Yeah, I'm gonna open up to the rest of the committee for questions, but what I will say is it's great to see VIU taking a much more active role in supporting local farmers or people interested in getting involved in the agricultural sector to ensure they have the skills to improve our local food production and food security. So it's a great work, and glad that we've partnered with you and VIU to advance these important initiatives. I'm going to turn to the committee. I've got Director Wilson, Director Martman, and then Director Abbott.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for that presentation. I support the farming community 100% because of the work that you do here. One of the things that I'm most interested in is the work that you do as therapy at Providence Farm that's mentioned on the website with the Riding Society, and those with some, I don't know what the correct term is, disability, that kind of thing. Can you elaborate more on the work that you do with that kind of thing, please?
Sure. So we actually aren't involved in their therapeutic activities. Our programs are run after hours and on the weekends. So we're, yeah, it's separate, our activities. There has been in the past a relationship with horticulture therapy, and I believe there's some conversations around getting that program revitalized, but that's currently not being offered.
Right, Mr. Chair, if I could have a follow-up, please. And so the therapeutic work and the disability is ongoing. You have a good number there.
I'm not sure of their numbers. That's Providence Farms day-to-day activities, so that's separate. So they they're happy to have us bring in the public in the after hours and on the weekends.
Good. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Director Martman.
Thank you, Chair. And hi, Julia. Thank you for your presentation. Love to hear what you've accomplished and look forward to more in 2025. My question is more around how are you finding the funding is to be sustainable? Maybe you can speak a little bit about that. And my second question will be more about communications.
Okay, good question. Nice to see you. So we're working to make sure this is a sustainable program. We want to be able to offer this in the long run and continue to develop programs that are affordable and but that also keep the program going. So there's a balance of looking for grant opportunities. The Future Skills Grant is an amazing program. The majority of the students had their tuition completely covered. And so that helps students to take the course, but then they can also learn about the other offerings while they're taking that course, which kind of brings some more support to the short workshops and longer programs. So we'll continue to look for grant opportunities, and we have our partnership with CWC and North Island College in particular, which is also a member, and so we work together on sharing those opportunities. Jesse, I'm not sure if you had anything you wanted to add about the sustainability.
Yeah, maybe I can just speak to, from an institutional perspective. As most people are aware, most post-secondary institutions are experiencing financial challenges these days, and VIU is no different. We're part of that group. And what it's done is it's forced us to look at our program mix and what we're offering. And I know in my conversations with senior leadership and what the long-term vision of VIU, agriculture and food security, food sustainability is part of what we want to include in our program mix moving forward. And there's lots of different forms that can look like, whether that is us building out further agriculture programming opportunities, but also kind of embedding it as cross-cutting themes in a lot of our other programs, so that it's not necessarily standalone, but it's connecting with a lot of our students at different programs at VIU. So like I say, currently, most of the programming that we're offering operates in a cost recovery activity, but we are looking at expanding the program mix to hopefully get some more sustainable, provincially funded programs running in the future.
Great. Follow-up, Director Martman?
Thank you, Chair. And I think thank you for that answer. I guess, the importance of this to me can't be understated, and the concept of micro-credential I think fits well with farmers' time and abilities to focus on something for a short term, but get long-term gain out of the knowledge. I guess the other part of my question is around communication and can you speak a little bit about maybe your growing Rolodex, if that's not an archaic term, about how much you're able to reach out and in terms of groups and individual people, or do you have a way that people can get informed or reach out to you? I'm just looking to share that information.
Great question. So we have a newsletter that's on our website and that we have been directing people to sign up for. We have around 200 people on that newsletter, and we have a couple other organizations that have been sharing information about the micro-credentials and other offerings, such as the Cowichan Agricultural Society, and I know the Young Agrarians has done some sharing as well, and we do a bit of back and forth with those groups to kind of promote them. So yeah, we continue to do that with our newsletter. The events, I'll be at a booth at the Islands Agriculture Show and a couple of CD Saturdays. So that's another way to continue to reach out and grow that interest list. I think there's, I have the good fortune of being a lifelong resident of Cowichan Valley, and growing up in the farming community, so I do have a lot of connections in my personal life that has helped me in this role to share the information. So I think, we're just very lucky that there's a lot of people who are seeing the need for these courses and programs. So people are also coming to us as well.
Thanks, Chair. And if I may, I think what I guess I'm getting to is that you can leverage this group probably because there's a great source of contacts through each individual director that may be able to also point people to your direction.
Director Abbott.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Ms. Fisher. Julia, if I may, a wonderful summary of what you've done and exciting news about what's in store coming forward, especially the craft brewing, which I'm sure is near and dear to the Fisher family. My question pertains to the program that was offered in the estuary, Cowichan Bay Estuary. Are you able to expand a little bit more on what happened and what plans are going to happen in the Cowichan Bay Estuary regarding agriculture?
So your question is what occurred on the field day in the estuary?
Yes, please, Julie.
So we essentially we needed more time there, but we had some connection to it through connecting with Ken Elliott, and he spoke to us at his plant nursery, but we made a stop at the estuary beforehand, and we could see the beginnings of the nursery that's been established there. And so Thomas Munson, who is a restoration expert, and he teaches at UVic, he gave some information there. And we hope to have some more the next time we offer this course. One of the, some of the feedback from the students is that they would love to spend more time there. And so our hope is that we'll be able to have maybe a full day or a half day, especially to learn about the project going on there.
Thank you.
Thanks, Hillary.
All right, seeing no other hands raised from the committee members, I want to thank Ms. Fisher and Mr. McGee-Chalmers for your presentation. And if you want to hang tight for a few minutes, our next item on the agenda is going to be a staff report on releasing the $10,000 in support for this project. So thanks again. All right, so we can now move on straight to reports. We have before us item R1, report from the Economic Development Division regarding the Vancouver Island University Agricultural Development Program update. I will turn to Mr. O'Riordan to speak to this item.
Good morning, Chair and Directors. Thank you. As you saw from the presentation, the purpose of this report is to provide an update on the 2023 to 2025 Vancouver Island University Ag Development Program that's being supported by EDC. In 2024, the CVRD board approved financial contribution for the program over 2 years, subject to certain deliverables. These deliverables have now been met as per the report, so staff are recommending the release of the 2024 contribution of $10,000. I'm here to answer any questions, and BIU is also present, as you see. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. O'Riordan. So I'll turn to the committee. Any questions for staff, or do we like to jump straight to the recommendation? Yeah, Director Martman.
I would move the recommendation.
It's been moved. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Director Abbott. Any discussion? Director McGonigal.
Just seconding.
All right, I'll call the question then. All in favor? And opposed? And opposed, motion carries. Thanks again, Ms. Fisher and Mr. McGee-Chalmers. Glad to be working with VIU on this important initiative.
Wonderful. Thanks for having us.
All right. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Board.
Thank you. We'll now move on to the next report. We have a report from the Deputy Chief Administrative Officer regarding the CVRD Strategic Plan 2023 to 2026. Quarter 4 2024 status report. This is provided for information. Any questions from the committee for staff? All right, we'll move on then to the next item on our agenda. R3, report from the Deputy Chief Administrative Officer regarding the CVRD Capital Projects Quarter 4 2024 status report. Again, for information. Any questions from the committee for staff? Director Morrison?
Thank you, Chair. I'm just wondering, and I'm sorry I didn't get my hand up for the first one, if our Deputy CAO had any remarks or thoughts on the process and where we're at on the previous item. I know it's an information item, and I've read it, and I've found it very interesting, but it was just thoughts if we wanted to hear any general remarks on that process and how it's working.
Mr. Postings?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So in relation to the quarterly strategic report, so this is now our third round of quarterly reports. I think, that what I would be able to share and what I was always able to share with the board is I think this process is becoming smoother and smoother from the staff and organizational perspective. We have a system now where staff are providing regular updates into our the software that we're using. and it allows us to, have accurate, information in a timely manner of, where projects or where initiatives are. So as I think I mentioned way back, back in the summer last year, this is evolving, but I think at the end of the day, one of the benefits of this is we're able to, as a staff, look internally and have some celebrations on some of the successes that we've had. And this year, when we look at the end of Q4 there, the end of the year, there certainly has been a lot of accomplishments that we want to be able to celebrate. The next step is we are scheduling a meeting with the board or a workshop with the board. It's scheduled right now in February at time. I don't know the exact date in front of me here, which would be a check-in, that annual check-in for the board to be able to check in on the strategic plan and make sure that if there are any adjustments or conversations. So that workshop will happen, and the fact that we have this quarterly report updated with all the information will be very helpful for not only the board but staff to be able to present, if there is other initiatives that want to be considered or, some of the current initiatives adjusted. So yeah, to date things have worked really well, and I think internally, one other point I would mention is this will, as of today, this will be posted online, so it's available right away for the public to be able to access and see where the various strategic priorities are. So I think any sort of process like this does take time, but I think it's getting smoother and smoother each session, taking less staff time and becoming more efficient. So yeah, so far so good.
Director Morrison, a follow-up.
Thank you, Chair, and I appreciate the opportunities for staff to celebrate the wins and the on tracks and the completed. I think that's great. I'm thinking the ones that are the behinds and not completed yet. These quarterly reports, I think, are great opportunities for those adjustments to be made mid-year. And is there anything that comes to mind from this report that is, I wouldn't say keeping you awake at night, but that is a priority that you would like to see advanced further than it is now and is behind its scheduled timeline? Is anything in particular come to mind?
Yeah. Through the chair to the director. So I guess two parts to that. One is that the intent of these reports, such as being information reports, will be allow the board to receive this, and if there's questions, we're happy to answer. If what we have as staff made sure, if there are things that are behind or say budgets are not sufficient, it's absolutely critical that comes forward as a staff report. So we'll bring that forward. So the decisions and direction. So I would suggest we avoid too much changes in these presentations. This is the information, but I will say that there's a couple that are behind that you will see some staff reports coming fairly soon, in the sense of maybe there's some adjustments, maybe there's been something come up that needs to be changed. So we will continue to do that through the staff report process, and this is flagging basically what you're likely going to see in the near future, if there is any. In relation to one that I would say is highlighted, you will probably the first section there, the reconciliation. You will be receiving a report in February regarding a number of things relating to reconciliation activities. As has been noted, we have hired our First Nations advisor, and that position started on January 6th, I guess it was, and they've already initiated a internal advisory committee. Presented a work plan we'll be presenting a work plan to SMT this week, and then the next step is, once that work plan has been reviewed, we'll be bringing that to the board. And so that's probably the big priority right now, that we want to get that underway, and we have a lot of energy and excitement behind that one there. So that one will be in February. So that's the one that jumps out right now, as that whole section of reconciliation is our priority in the immediate future here.
Director Estache.
Thanks, Chair. Looks like we hopped back to strategic plan, and I thought we were on capital plan. Is it fine to speak on capital plan status update right now?
I'll just turn to the committee, ask any other questions on strategic plan, or we can move on to capital plan now. All right, seeing no hands up, Director Stoush will move straight to the capital plan.
Like the strategic plan, no real questions or comments. It's great to now to see the updating reports and hearing the other directors on their comments on those type of things apply across to the capital plan. But real quick was relevance to our most recent press release on page 9 with our regional parkland acquisition. Great job by staff and all involved, of course, to get the Bald Mountain Park expansion. I shared that press release all around, but the big question I kept getting back was, can we provide a map? So not really a question, just a request of staff if they can update the press release somewhere or put it somewhere of an actual map, because everybody was asking me, they didn't understand where the expansion was. So great work by staff, and just a quick comment on that. And otherwise, looking at all the capital projects, yeah, definitely lots on the go and great to see.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Postings?
Yeah, thank you. And just to respond to the director's comment, absolutely, we can work on that and get that map available. So yeah, that's a great comment. One thing with the capital, if I could just share, there's just really only one item, is that when we last presented the capital, the one thing that we talked about is that there's 2 sections within this. One section is the completed items. Because we had not been reported on capital consistently in the past up until now, we'll be provided on a quarterly update, is we have broken out the ones that are completed. So those completed items, some of those go back to 2018-19 when they were funded. Some were multi-year projects. So that completed, just for the director's awareness, the board or the committee's awareness, is that we'll show that'll be posted as completed, but in the future for 2025, we'll just be posting the ongoing ones. And the ones that have been completed for 2024 and prior will be archived or will be actually just available online. So we're not going to be showing quarterly after quarter ones that are 2-3 years old. So just want to share that. That's why they're separated out. So each year we'll do that, where we combine all the completed ones and the remaining ones will continue along. And as what was approved in 2000, will or is approved in 2025 will then be inserted into that Q2 report there. So, or Q1, sorry. Thank you.
Director Morrison.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Postings, I'm just wondering if you, this is more of a 30,000 foot level question, but in relation to the difficulties in the sort of municipal cost of living inflation rates that we've been seeing extraordinary numbers coming in for RFPs and the likes, and I'm just wondering if you're seeing any trend towards a normalization of costs and our supply chain issues are being resolved, and is there much in what you've reported on here that you would say might be exposed to some of those cost overruns that are experiencing all across the province and the country?
Mr. Postings?
Yes, through the chair to the director. Yeah, great question. And I would say that one of the benefits of these, now that we have these quarterly reports, we are actually able to have these conversations and start looking ahead at, let's just say a project is defined and we are seeing some cost impacts that we're possibly going to be expecting. So we are having those conversations, staff are having those conversations internally about, possible adjustments to the work plans, which of course will come back to the board and get direction due to the fact that there are some costs that are certainly we're seeing are not within budget, may not be the best interest for us to proceed forward at this time. Maybe we need a break in the sense of the timing of that. But so we are having those conversations as of now, just because of some of the impacts, but I don't think there's any in there right now that jump out that I can flag right now. But I would say it is a conversation that staff are having, and we will certainly bring any of those impacts of potential costs back to the board for direction, but none highlighted right now. Yeah, thank you.
Director Nicholson.
Thank you, Mr. Postings, that's a great report. I appreciate them. You mentioned that we're going to have a conversation about strategic priorities in the near future, and we've talked about in the past about the absence of or perhaps the need to strengthen our focus on agriculture, and I know that it needs to be done in terms of the budget as well. So I'm wondering what the timeline is for those discussions.
Through the chair to the director. So the plan is either, what we're looking at right now, this is just tentative, but it's either February 5th or 12th. We're just looking at the calendar there, and we'll work with the chair to determine what that timeline looks like. We have a draft agenda. The CAO and myself have created a draft agenda with the GMs, and we will bring this workshop back to, or develop this workshop. We have the workshop developed, but we'll bring to the board for consideration of new items. So if you recall, there's been things such as placed in what we've termed the parking lot. So these are items that are not part of the actual strategic plan currently, but there's some interest in considering those items for the strategic plan. So we will bring that forward. We already have that list of the parking lot items that have been put there, which includes agriculture. That's one that is, there's a number of aspects of the agricultural side. And then the board will have to make some decisions. Is there an adjustment to the actual existing strategic plan to be able to fit these in, or maybe some of the things on the strategic plan are not, that were developed at UAFCO, are not a priority at this point in time for the next couple of years and need to be adjusted out. So that workshop will be happening in the next month, and we'll check in with the board, make sure that the current strategic plan is clear for staff to then go and continue developing that. But there are parking lot items that have been brought forward, and those will be discussed and presented.
Follow up, Director Nicholson?
Yeah, and so can I be assured that if we need to alter the budget, we'll have time to do that?
I'm not sure I can answer that right now. That's a good question. I'm not sure that we'd have to look at that, exactly what that looks like. I think how I would mention that it looks like Danielle may have a comment on that.
Ms. Miles Wilson.
Hi. Oh, we're looking at the wrong video. I just wanted to note that because of the timeline in the calendar, reminding the directors that you have the Strategic Investments Fund, which is set aside and can be used to fund strategic priorities that do come up throughout the year, as you already know. But because of the cycle that we're creating with these updates and reviewing of the strategic plan, the intent is that the strategic plan update is informing of the next budget cycle moving forwards. So although you have some flexibility in the Strategic Investments Fund to activate a project or an initiative that we don't currently have funded, we're looking at kind of the next cycle and kind of how we would advise you on revising your work priorities and the strategic plan priorities in the next cycle. But I'll just highlight that there's definitely an opportunity there, but anything of significance would have to be looked at in the more comprehensively.
Director Nicholson, follow up.
No, just so when you say the next cycle, you mean 2020 for the budget for 2026?
Yes. So just kind of highlighting that you do have some ability to fund one-off projects in different areas that we don't currently have budgeted, right? But that if there's anything of significance, if you want to explore any significant investment or a new service type of thing, we'd be looking at the next budget and then in the following year.
All right, I'll turn to the committee. Any further questions with regards to the capital plan projects update? We will now move on to the next item on the agenda, R4, report from Emergency Management Division regarding the Regional Emergency Management Local Authority Agreement, CVRD, and member municipalities. We do have a three-part recommendation before us, but I will turn to the committee to see if you have any questions for staff. And if not, I'll ask if someone would like to move the recommendation moved by Director Morrison, seconded by Director Segal. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? And opposed? None opposed. The motion carries. We'll now move on to unfinished business. UB1, report from the Office of the CAO regarding the 2025 Association of Vancouver Island and Coastal Communities resolutions. We have a recommendation that it be recommended to the board that on January 22nd, 2024, that the 3 resolutions provided be submitted to AVICC for consideration at the 2025 convention. So we have 3 resolutions before us. I can certainly read them all out if you like, or not. Any discussion, or would someone like to get these on the floor? Moved by Director McGonigal, seconded by Director Nicholson. Any discussion? Director Nicholson?
Thank you. Sorry about that. I am wondering if it's possible to strengthen the one about the private managed forest land. I think having the review is important, and I know that the review has heard a lot about the issues that were identified by the public input folks today. And I think they're really important, and I'm wondering if that should be emphasized a bit more. Right now, it's just the review and more local government input. But I want to be very explicit that we've got the need to manage our watersheds more ecologically so that we protect our water supply.
I can respond, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Ms. Miles Wilson.
Yeah, and so I just to remind the directors too that we did request a ministers meeting last year at UBCM on this topic, and we met with the deputy and we met with staff as well. And there was lukewarm kind of commitment and interest, but then again, that was at a time where they weren't kind of in a position to make commitments, as the government was not willing to make any of those commitments. But we're happy to revise and strengthen the resolution itself. But I'll just also remind that these are to be submitted with backgrounders. And so staff, with your direction, if there's other additional details you'd like to be submitted in a backgrounder, we can actually strengthen the resolution, but also just put a little bit more information in that additional document. And the other thing is we'll need to identify, or the chair will need to kind of appoint someone to speak to each resolution at the convention if it gets accepted. So just as a bit of context on the process.
Thanks, Ms. Miles Wilson. I'm going to turn to Director McGonigal in a moment, but could staff provide us with a bit of guidance on how best to incorporate that stronger emphasis that Director Nicholson referenced? Would we do this kind of on the fly right now with adding some additional wording, or provide staff with some direction, maybe make some tweaks before this comes back to the board this afternoon?
So that would be my preference, Mr. Chair, is to give a bit of direction, and then we can recraft the wording and then put it back on the board this afternoon. These have to get submitted by February 6th, so we do really need to wrap it up today if possible.
All right, let's hold that thought for a second. I'm going to turn to Director McGonigal and Director Morrison, and then perhaps we can discuss whether we want to provide staff with direction to strengthen some of the wording. So Director McGonigal.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, I think the opportunity with the backgrounder that Ms. Miles Wilson spoke of, and by appointing a director to speak to that once it hits the floor, could be the avenue for the strengthened language, where we had a captive audience of fellow elected officials throughout the room that might support us, who also have considerable concerns within private forest managed lands within some of their communities. So that would be an avenue that I would think might be appropriate, instead of trying to write on the fly and bring it back this afternoon. Just a thought.
Thanks, Director McGonigal. Director Morrison.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And just, thinking about the process here and the fact that this will be reviewed by UBCM staff and AVICC staff, and this will be a long, added to a long list of resolutions that have been submitted. And, hearing and agreeing with a lot of what Director Nicholson is saying is that we're going at the Private Managed Forest Lands Act with a principal focus of watershed protection and management. And I'm just looking at this and considering should we perhaps be splitting this and saying we have a grave concern about our watersheds, our aquifers, and the general management and lack of local participation and oversight in that process. And also we have as a separate resolution an issue with the Private Managed Forest Lands Act and its lack of responsibility around practices and the like. So I put that out there. I'm reading the resolution like so many others. We're going at water through forests, and this hasn't ever been very well received by the provincial government. So for information.
Thanks, Director Morrison. I've got Director McClinton, Director Stash. Then I'm going to go back to Director Nicholson.
Thanks, Chair. I just want to support Director McGonigal's idea, and I would nominate him to be our speaker. And if he needs help standing, I'll be there right with him.
Thanks, Director McGonigal. Director Stash.
Like Director McClinton, I was going to support what Director McGonigal said on putting someone on the spot on that. And actually, I was going to recommend the chair, mostly just for benefit of the CVRD board here. Chair Douglas has, for our council, we've been on 6 local mill tours now. We've been touring and meeting with the executives at all the pulp mills, value-added mills, primary mills, new kilns, the investments and everything. And PMFL does come up in a bit in that discussion. I do take, it is important to clarify what our goals are on PMFL. Like Director Morrison said, are we after water or are we after the whole process, access, community input and engagement? But myself personally, from what I've seen, and also I've seen the Chair Douglas corner the previous Minister Ralston and his deputy ministers several times, so has their ear, knows the staff. So if he was going to speak to it on the floor, if he's willing to, I'd suggest that maybe our chair of the committee does that speaking at AVICC, as he's so well versed on it. But I'm open to the whole boards, but I just wanted to put him on the spot and explain the work he has been doing and the countless letters on behalf of our municipalities wrote about PMFL in the entire forest industries. And he's traveled, we've actually done tours up in Comox and other regions to see mills and other people dealing with similar PMFL issues. Not so much related to water, more so to economic issues it creates, but I just wanted to speak to that. So I think I've said my bit and I'll stop talking. I just wanted to put there, I think it's really important, but Director Morrison, his point was really important, is what is our ultimate goal? And maybe we need to be really clear on what we're doing here. It isn't so much the water, we're doing good work on the water side. It's the whole PMFL in its whole. And if we can get any kind of review done and get a community impact, and like they're doing on FRPA and the community planning workshop and their logging practices where there's community, I can't even remember the forest planning part of it, all the better.
Great, thanks, Director Stash. Yeah, I appreciate the vote of confidence. I think around our table, there's many of us who have different areas of expertise around forestry and the Private Managed Forest Lands program. And I know last year at UBCM, several of us spoke in the meeting with the minister and all, again, brought a different perspective, I think, which made us very effective. I know Director Nicholson, we're next. Director Martman hasn't spoken yet, so I'm going to Director Martman, then you're next after that, Director Nicholson.
Thank you, Chair. And I think there may be a third item around this that maybe staff can speak to. It's around the property taxes that are paid by forestry lands. And that's sort of been, I gather, not been addressed, since the review is not complete. Is that part of that as well? And I have a follow-up.
I'll turn to staff. I mean, that certainly I think is something we could address in the background, or it could be addressed if we do get the province to actually complete the review. But I'll turn to Ms. Miles Wilson.
Yeah, it has been in background material. Keep in mind that this issue has been coming up for a decade. And I do feel like we're kind of repackaging the same argument over and over, not to discredit the fact that this is very important advocacy work. And you guys have identified this in your strategic plan as being a major priority for advocacy. But I would say absolutely we can work something like that into the backgrounder. By the nature of resolutions, they're meant to be very short and sweet and to the point. And so not all of our argument or our concerns necessarily are going to make their way. Just the most important focused point is what to be in the resolution.
Thank
Follow up,
you.
Director Martin.
Yeah, thank you. And I think this is where there are so many things that fall out of this one issue around the review that I think we have to be very strategic, and I would leave it to the staff to look at that, because I think if you put all three things down, it may not get traction, whereas one item may. And I think the watershed and aquifer for my community is actually absolutely paramount. And so I guess I'd leave it to staff to say, this is the time to push this button right now because it has more chance of being successful. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to turn to Director Nicholson, then I'd like to weigh in myself.
Thank you. I sent a suggested for a modification of wording, and I sent it to you and Allison Boyd. And I can read it out if you'd like.
Yeah, please do. Sorry, Director Martin, can you lower your hand?
So I just suggest that the last part be changed to say, therefore be it resolved that AVICC requests that the province of BC and the Ministry of Forests reform the Private Managed Forest Lands Act so that it protects the groundwater and surface water quantity and quality, ecologically regulates the harvest rate, and ensures that local governments have input to resource harvesting activities within the watersheds that support their communities.
And just to be clear, Director Nicholson, would that be in addition to the other, therefore be it resolved, that staff have presented?
No, yes, if you know, in the one that the staff suggests, this is just to replace it. It's just an edit. I've added a couple of some words around the water quality and quantity.
All right, so we have a suggestion then to revise the wording for the resolution. I've heard different perspectives around the table here. We can ask Director Nicholson to move that, get it on the floor for debate, or I don't know, does anyone have any? Director Nicholson?
I can move it if you'd like.
Okay, let's get it on the floor. So it's been moved. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Director Deck. Director Morrison.
Thank you, Chair. I was just wondering if it was appropriate to split the three resolutions or consider this separately.
Yeah, that's a great idea. How about yeah, we sever them. So let's and this is the second. Yeah, we could deal with resolutions 1 and 3 to get those out of the way, and then circle back to number 2. Does that work? Recognizing we've got a motion on the floor right now, but before we move to debating that, we'll just kind of clean this up.
So moved.
Okay, so we've moved resolutions 1 and 3 for submitting to the AVICC. Moved by Director Morrison, seconded by Director Abbott. Any discussion? I'll call the question on resolutions 1 and 3. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. We're going to go back to resolution 2, and we have a motion on the floor to revise the wording for the therefore be it resolved.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question for clarity?
Yeah.
So the staff had recommended that we, in the resolved section of the resolution, that we request that the province complete the currently stalled phase 2 PMFL review. At the previous convention, there was not a commitment to kind of move forwards with that. So I just wanted clarity around the revised wording. Do you want to still note that as a bit of a follow-up from last year, or remove that portion?
So like, I can't speak on behalf of the committee. My preference would be to include that reference to completing the review. I think it is a nice, simple message that you spent money, you initiated this thing, you asked for our input. The Cowichan Watershed Board provided input. Most of the regional districts and municipalities on Southern Vancouver Island, as far as I can tell, did provide some input. And it would be great to see the province wrap that up. And if they do that, wrap that up, and if they are taking our feedback seriously, I think that they would have to address many of the issues raised. That doesn't mean we can't, certainly doesn't mean we can't pass the addition suggested by Director Nicholson, but from my perspective, I definitely would like to keep the reference to completing the program review in the resolution. So I'll turn to the committee. Any further discussion? Got a resolution on the floor here. Director McClinton.
I think I need, excuse me, just a little bit of clarity. So keeping the review and then adding that's already in the existing resolution, right?
Yeah, I think if I could, my understanding is Director Nicholson thought it would replace it, but I think we do have the option of adding it instead, so that we are continuing that reference to the program review.
I'll just say this. I just share our CAO's concerns, and I think we should be chipping away at small wins with the province. I mean, they're dug in on this. This is a massive moneymaker for them for tax revenue, and I just think this is going to fall flat. So just for that reason, I don't think I can support it. I support it in principle. I wish if we had the decision-making process, I would support it, but I won't support the resolution for just those reasons.
Thanks, Director McClinton. Director Morrison, and then Director Martman.
Yeah, I'm challenged as well because I just in listening, I don't have it in writing, but in listening to the resolution put forward by Director Nicholson, again, we're talking completion of the review, we're talking practices, and then there's that chunk that's water sustainability, water balance, which is, the provincial ministry responsible for forests is going to look at that chunk and essentially ignore it. If there is a resolution that refers to the ministry responsible for watersheds and aquifers to work with the Ministry of Forests to protect watersheds and aquifers, I think that it's more targeted, it's more specific, and it's not going to get lost because there's too much of an ask in a broad-based resolution.
Great, thanks, Director Morrison. I'll go to Director Martman, then Director Deck. Sorry, I noticed Ms. Miles Wilson, your hand's raised. Did you have anything to add before I move to Director Martman?
No, that is a mistake. I put it down.
All right, Director Martman, then Director Deck.
So easy to do. I guess I think there's value in what Director Nicholson is saying, but I'm uncomfortable sort of flipping resolutions so quickly without maybe having staff take a look at both of them and saying maybe there's a better one to come forward with that we could vote on, look at this afternoon. So I'm wondering if staff, I think that's where staff sort of started as well, saying, give us direction, we'll come back, let's have something this afternoon, because I think there's pieces of both, but I think as other directors are saying, we also have to be strategic about what we can accomplish. So I don't know if this is a referral motion or we just leave it defer it till the board.
Yeah, I don't have the answer to that, Director Martman. I would look to the rest of the committee. Ms. Miles Wilson, you look like you're about to add something.
Yeah, just if there is direction, we can refer this to the board this afternoon, and then I can connect with our environmental services team who helped put this together, and we can take a look at the wording and carry on with the discussion and hopefully land a revised resolution that sits well with everyone.
Okay, so how about we have that as an option, then we can refer the motion to staff to refine the resolution and bring it back to the board for discussion this afternoon. Something along those lines, Ms. Miles Wilson? All right. Director Deck?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, thanks. I think I can't overstate. I can't say how much value there is in thinking of forestry or any activity on private managed forest land that's more important than whole of watershed approach in terms of forestry and water sustainability. I mean, water is the key here. You know, it's what the release of water from the watersheds in, you know, overlogged mountains is what causes the pulses, the big floods, the lack of water in the summer. That whole timing thing is because of logging. So, that's my perspective. Sorry, I can't just speak for everyone, but from my perspective, water is the most important reason we need to look at changing private managed forest land. So I don't want that to be forgotten at all.
Thanks, Director Deck. I'll turn to Director Estache.
Very quick, for the reasons Director McClinton said, keep it simple and just even getting the act continued and reviewed. That's the goal. That's the win, and all these other points will be built into there. So as they say, keep it simple. So I support Director McClinton's position.
Director Justice.
Yeah, just very simply, I would be in favor of keeping the original motion and adding a second one expressing Director Nicholson's motion.
All right, so here in the comments around the virtual table here, I think we can either vote on the motion on the floor as is. We can refer it back to staff to come up with some refinements to the original resolution, or we can just leave the resolution as is. Do we want to test, see if there is an appetite for referring it to staff so we can at least consider I see it, Director Segal, one sec. Do we want to refer this to staff just to see what some alternative wording might look like for consideration at the board meeting? I'll turn to Director Segal.
Yeah, I'd move that to refer it to the board this afternoon.
Okay, so we'll refer the motion on the floor to staff to refine the wording of the ABICC resolution regarding private managed forest lands for the board's consideration during the January 2022 meeting. Does that work? So
Yep.
Moved by Director Segal, seconded by Director McClinton. Call the question. All in favor? And opposed? And none opposed. So it's been referred. We can discuss this further very soon. So we'll now move on to question period, and I'll turn to staff as we are in a virtual meeting and ask if there are any virtual attendees with their hands raised.
Nope, we do not have anyone registered for question period, and nobody in the spare room beside me.
All right, we do not have a closed session today, so I think we can move straight to adjournment. I'll look for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Director Nicholson, seconded by Director Duncan. I'll call the question. All in favor? And opposed? And opposed, motion carries. So I'll declare this meeting adjourned.